Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. Today I really wanted to delve into masculine roses. Now, I know I've said in previous videos that I don't really believe in gender division in perfumery, but I do get a lot of queries and DMs on Instagram in particular, asking me about rose as a component for men's fragrances. And there are a lot out there that, run the gamut from very floral and rosy to very kind of animalic rose like Antaeus by Chanel and things like that. So what I thought I'd do is create a spectrum of rose fragrances that can be worn by both men and women, which goes from quite feminine leaning to more masculine leaning. And I think that sort of that way you might find something in that spectrum. You'll sort of see a point where you might fall, or maybe you want to explore something at one of the other ends of the spectrum. So first off the rank is a fragrance from 1949. It's Rochas La Rose by Marcel Rochas. Now, this was created after World War II, and you might recall from one of my previous videos, the one on Chanel number 46, I'd mentioned that, post-World War II, we entered this period of exuberance and joy. We were over the moon that the atrocities of the World War was behind us. And we felt, now's the time to celebrate. Edmund Rudnitska authored this fragrance, and he really did capture that jubilation in this bottle. And obviously the name La Rose, it is tracing its focus on rose. There's tea rose, there's Bulgarian rose, lovely green notes. It's furnished with apricot, there's plum, lily of the valley. It's got beautiful undercurrent of vanilla and musk and patchouli and amber. And you know what I love about La Rose? It is quite feminine and it is very floral, but it has this wonderful sense of green. There's like rose geranium in there that really lifts it and makes it bright and brisk. It sort of couples with top notes of bergamot and lemon, and it sort of remains fresh and bright. Not one of those roses which is dark or patchouli laden. This one's lovely and almost candy-like. If you do find a bottle of La Rose, it's very difficult to get your hands on, but if you do chance upon one, maybe in a flea market or online, it is a wonderful rose for both men and women. Next up, I've got Portrait of a Lady by Frédéric Malle. This one was authored by Dominique Ropignon, and it was in 2010 that this reached the world stage. It is heavily marketed towards women, although the Malle fragrances sort of position themselves as being resolutely unisex. I can see why women would be drawn to this because it's a fantastic heady rose. It's that wonderful velvety red rose. But it is underpinned by things like patchouli, which grounds it and gives it a nice sort of earthiness. It's got wonderful balsamic and resinous notes. There's musk, there's amber, there's clove, so a wonderful spice through there. This rose, I think, sits second in the spectrum because it does lean slightly more feminine than masculine. But that being said, anytime I've worn this fragrance, I'm asked what it is I'm wearing. And by that token, my wife is always complimented when she wears it too. So for men who feel a little bit daring, who want to wear something that turns heads, I would highly recommend Portrait of a Lady. Next up on the spectrum, Washington Tremlett's Black Tie. I love this fragrance. This is probably the first masculine rose that I ever wore and ever purchased and fell in love with. Not a lot of people are familiar with the brand Washington Tremlett. They're actually luxury shirt makers and tailors working out of Savile Row in London. And in fact, Washington Tremlett have been around a long time. They created all the costumes for the cast of My Fair Lady, which was shot back just after World War II. And in fact, it was them that coined the phrase black tie for a black tie event. Hence the name of the fragrance. This one is fantastic. It's got sage, walnut, saffron, there's rose, geranium. It's got great notes with vanilla, patchouli, musk and amber. And you know what? This one smells like a meticulously groomed gentleman. When I wear this, it's a very dandy feeling fragrance. I love it, and I'm also complimented on it. Funnily enough, some years ago, my wife and I had a wonderful experience at a restaurant where we ordered a saffron and rosewater kulfi, and which is like almost like an ice cream, and it tasted exactly as this fragrance smells. So I made my way into the kitchen and accosted the chef and said, I'm not leaving here until you give me the recipe. We've made the kulfi here at home, and indeed it's a dead ringer. So I love this fragrance. and it sits smack bang in the middle of the spectrum. I think men and women love it in equal measure, and yeah, it's one you should definitely seek out. I'm not sure if it's still in production or recently discontinued, but yes, it's ambrosial. Next up, at number 4, I am delighted to cast another light on Check and Speak number 88. I did review this in my Instagram Reels a while ago, and it is the most glorious Victorian rose. If you want something that's got a wonderful old world feel about it, but sort of still has its foot in the here and now, number 88 is the way to go. This rose is underpinned by cassia, so a very sort of cinnamony type fragrance. It's got notes of vetiver, there's rose, geranium, there's even frangipani in there, but it just has this phenomenal darkness about it. This one I think any guy can pull off with ease. It's just so interesting. It has a mystery about it, and I also love that it's it kind of I always think when I wear it of Sweeney Todd or Jack the Ripper. It's kind of that late Victorian Black Crow top hat kind of fragrance. I've got the EDP here. It does come in a cologne as well, but I have really fallen for the EDP. Try either of them. I highly recommend for men and women. You almost get a sense of pink musk lollies, and I'm not sure if the world knows about these, but certainly here in the Antipodes and Australia and New Zealand, we have pink musk sweets, and they've got a very distinctive scent. This reminds me of it. This and probably incense sticks kind of is in here too. Number 88 is number 4 on the spectrum. Finally, at number 5 and on the far right of the spectrum, we've got Aesop's Roseau. Now, Roseau is a fantastic fragrance, and it boggles my mind that more people aren't aware of it or don't talk about it or haven't tried it. It was launched in 2020 by Aesop, and there are Aesop stores in almost every city in the world, so if you've never visited one, I highly recommend you do. Not only are they beautifully fitted out, they're all created by local designers in each of the cities, and you know, often architecturally designed, but they have this wonderful zen-like quality to every store. It's just calm and, you know, restorative as soon as you step through the doors. There are around 8 or so fragrances in the Aesop portfolio, and Roseau is definitely a standout for me. This one is probably the most masculine leaning, only in that the rose is stripped back and there are wonderful notes that really support it underneath. It's got shiso, which is a Japanese sort of leafy plant. It has gaiac wood. There's wonderful notes of bitter orange and bergamot. It's just such a great scent, and it comes across as being quite warm, being quite unique and a little bit spicy. The rose is pulled back a little bit and the shiso pushed forward. I think men and women would definitely love this in equal measure, and indeed Aesop do position their fragrances as genderless. Roseau is a hidden gem. If you've not had a sniff, seek it out. Go and have a play with it. Wear it on your skin for a little while. Spray some in the store, then go for a walk where you don't have the smell of the store in that environment, trapped in that space. It's just a beautiful, sensual, and interesting rose fragrance. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this overview of some rose fragrances that happen to be amongst my favorites, and some of these recommendations for you to go and try. I'd love to hear your favorite rose fragrances in the comments below, so drop your comments down there and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm delighted to answer your questions, so yeah, check back in and I'll be back very soon. Thanks for joining me.